is intellectual honesty. And so what that looks like is if I'm in a session with a team and we're all sitting there at this table in some boardroom somewhere, and someone says, "Oh, Morgan, what's the precise calculation of sofa?" And I have zero clue. I say, "I don't know." And I will start out my sessions being very upfront about the fact that there is a ton of stuff that I don't know. And I'm very front footed about that. I think intellectual honesty also means you should be able to pivot and just, be honest about how you're
Hmm.
conducting yourself. And the third one is simplicity. And this is one that and I'd love to hear your thoughts here as well, because um, a lot of people will say that investing can be really simple. And I actually disagree. I think investing is one of the most complex things in the entire world. You can go about it in a simple way, but investing and I mean, let alone beating a benchmark, is incredibly difficult. And so the idea of simplicity is to bring things to their core, but without oversimplifying it.
Yeah. Um, well, one thing is the act of investing. The other one is generating performance. But one thing's for sure is that I think investing per se is not necessarily hard. It's just that a lot of people really try to make it harder than what it actually is for some
Yes.
reason. Um, and that's something I noticed myself. And one of the reasons why I'm active on social media also, because I feel there's a way to explain stuff in a bit like you were saying, in an honest way, um, that everyone understands and
Yes.
that can make sense even for the uninitiated people. So
Mm.
it's not something trivial. It's not something obviously super easy either, but it's definitely not as hard as a lot of people think.
Yes.
And I think you're the proof of it with Hawks and Doves, and there's other people on similar missions to yours, trying to
Absolutely.
democratize all this knowledge and all this information. Which at the end of the day,
Mm.
if you explain it in simple terms, most people would understand. The problem with
Yes.
finance is two things. I think first of all is that a lot of people actually don't have the intellectual honesty that you have, and when they don't know,
Hmm.
instead of saying I don't know, they try to give some very complex explanations to hide that lack of knowledge. And I think that's frankly a bad thing, and I've seen
Yes.
that a lot happening in
Yeah.
the industry. um and the second thing I was going to say, I forgot about it. What was it? It was something related. Oh yeah, related to the fact that at the end of the day, the finance industry and financial markets more specifically are an evolving thing, right? Like, and it's
Mm.
incredibly hard to predict what is going to happen, and not even the best investors in the world know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And it took me a lot of years to kind of acknowledge this. I thought when I was a student that there would be some very smart people out there that had exactly the roadmap and knew how markets were going to behave, and that's how you were going to make money. But the truth is that no one has a clue, you know and if someone tells you the opposite, it's not true. Like, you can
Yes.
have an idea, sometimes you have theses that are very close to what actually happens and so on, but no one knows for sure what is going to happen, because no one has a crystal ball that can predict exactly how the world and the millions of parameters out there are going to behave. And yeah, and when you acknowledge that, you realize that we're kind of all in the same boat, really.
Yeah.
And I feel when I read your content, that message kind of comes between the lines, saying,
Mm.
"Hey, it's okay not to know anything. No one really knows, but the important thing is to get out there, try to build an investment thesis, inform yourself, educate yourself, try to understand, and try to make the best decision you can with the information you have at hand, and
Yes.
maximize your chances of getting it right. But it will never be 100% sure thing, and if anyone tells you the opposite, they're lying to you, honestly."
I literally couldn't agree more. And actually, you just reminded me of something. So when I do sessions with financial services clients, which is really sort of my primary focus, um, the first slide that I start with is a photo of the final seconds of the 2015 Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of pull it up, and everyone kind of looks at it. And it's like, well, okay, where's she going with this?
What is happening here?
What is this? Like, I thought we're talking about markets, this is, and so it's the final seconds of the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. And it shows the Patriots winning. And I always ask, okay, is anyone an NFL fan? Really sorry if you're a Hawks fan. Of course, my company's name's Hawks and Doves, so I quite like the little mix there. And more often than not, actually, there will be some people that know exactly what that photo means. And basically, what happens is in the final moments of the Super Bowl 2015, there was a decision made by the coach to make a certain play, and the Hawks made it, and they lost the Super Bowl. And the next day, the papers were like, oh, worst decision ever by the coach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this story is from a book called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, and it's just phenomenal. And basically, with NFL, there's an amazing amount of statistics and probability. And so you can really easily understand, okay, what is the likelihood of this play working the way that we want it to?
Mm-hmm.
And that play had a 2% chance of a negative outcome. But was it a good decision? Yeah, right? If the decision has a 2% chance of a negative outcome, that's a good decision, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good outcome. And I start with this because I think it's a perfect analogy to set up, like, look, the world of investing, your investment team has the hardest job in the world, and they're constantly trying to make good decisions. But whether they're good outcomes or not, as you said, there's millions and millions and hundreds of millions of factors that could influence that and make it a bad outcome. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
You've reached the end of this clip, but the story's not over. To watch the full episode, follow this link. Go on. You can do it.